If you
And
want to go get your iPad, you can sit in.
just for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. And if you want to go ahead and jump in, feel free to kick your microphone on. So what we're going to do this evening is I want to look at just week one a little bit, make sure nobody's forgetting anything from week one. And then week two, we will spend most of our time looking at week two and begin thinking about larger goals in the class. So one thing I like to point out is that I structure composition, like, I don't just like randomly think about things to do and kind of like just, pull them out of nowhere. um, one of the things that informs most educational thinking nowadays is this idea of Bloom's taxonomy. And I'm going to share with you guys a chart that's kind of well known for what I'm talking about here. So basically, it's the idea of how do we structure thinking? How do we teach people to really think in a critical way? And one of the most common philosophies nowadays is to use this concept called Bloom's taxonomy. And I'm going to share with you guys a image, if it would actually open up. Maybe it won't open up. There we go. All right. And open image, new tab. There we go. All right. So the idea of this is how to structure learning. And so if you think about it, the most basic stuff is like knowledge, memorization, right? And so many of you guys have tests where you have to memorize large quantities of information. Kathy, you're certainly familiar with that, right? And Denise, you guys have talked about how much memorization you have to do, how much studying you have to do for your tests. So for instance, if I ask a question like identify, the best, you know, I don't know, practice for whatever situation you might have. It doesn't really involve a lot of critical thinking. All you're doing is going back into that filing cabinet in your brain, trying to find the right file, right? Same goes for comprehension. Comprehension means that we kind of get why it happens. So, if identification is like pick the right drug for the situation as a nurse, given that so many of you guys are going to nursing, comprehension might be like, um, what are the reasons for using this particular drug? Application begins to move into a different situation. So I think about talking about drugs and pharmacology. Kathy just mentioned it, so it's kind of in my head right now. Interestingly, people who take glaucoma medicine have extended eyelashes, right? So sometimes glaucoma medicine produces longer eyelashes than normal. And so what are lots of people doing nowadays who want longer eyelashes? Instead of having mascara on or, falsies on, they put, falsies is probably the wrong word, but fake eyelashes on. They'll take glaucoma medicine, which will actually make their eyelashes go longer. What are they doing all of a sudden? Well, they're doing this third point here, which is applying. They're taking something, knowing the effects, and applying it to a new situation. I would say in many respects, composition one sort of stops right there, right? You're taking the tools, I would teach you a problem solution, we teach you a definition paper, and we say, okay, now create it your own, right? Apply it to a situation that you're interested in. And so then you go ahead and take what you did, what you learned, what you comprehended, and you applied it to a new situation. What we're going to be doing in composition two, and I mentioned this I think in my opening video, is that composition two is so much less about lower order thinking, and it's much more about higher order thinking. And what is higher order thinking? It's these right here. It's evaluation, synthesis, and analysis. Analysis means we're able to break things apart. We're able to see what's going on behind the scenes. The word analysis in Greek literally means to take apart. Synthesis means to put things together, right? Like synonym means same or together, and so you're putting things together. So if this is breaking things apart, synthesis is quite the opposite. You're putting things together. And finally, the highest form, according to this theory, is evaluation, which means that you can really assess the value of something. You can look at something and you can argue whether it's good or bad, whether it's positive or negative, whether it has the desired effects and not. And so the reason I'm bringing all this up is because during week one, you guys were playing with two of the most important ideas that we deal with. That is, now in the causal analysis, right, quiz 2, and quiz 1, evaluation. This is not to say that you have to write causal analysis or evaluation papers. In fact, we're not actually even going to write a small evaluation or a small causal analysis. We're not doing any of those things in this particular class. We just don't have time to do it. But I am teaching Composition 2 in person here in Pittsburgh, and I'm having my students write a very short causal analysis and a very short evaluation to get them going in it. But then again, I meet them in person, so it becomes a little bit easier to do that. That said, we are fundamentally going over the basic writing, giving you a situation, patient privacy, and you have to come up with your own paper for the bridge. And so that's due this evening, and if you're just a little bit behind, get it to me tomorrow. I understand that the new semester jumps right in, and keep me posted if you won't have it in tonight. Quiz 1 and Quiz 2, I want to spend just a brief amount of time kind of going over these. I noted a lot of people struggled, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually allow a third attempt for everybody. So if you've struggled, if you didn't get 100%, we're going to give you guys a third attempt. So let's take a moment and just try some of these questions together, okay? Because I know that evaluation, being that highest order of thinking, is really kind of challenging, and it's hard to see precisely what I'm trying to get you guys to do sometimes. And I don't want you to be frustrated. I don't want you to have problems right off the bat. Denise, it's still not working. Like, the sound is still really funny. So if you could just send me a message to the chat, maybe that would be good. All right, so let's try a couple of these. So number 1, and everybody feel free to jump into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and send a message so you can see where it is. All right, so go ahead and open the chat, and we will just practice a couple of these. I won't necessarily tell you what the right answer is, but I'll point you in the right direction, okay? So where do we need to evaluate things? Number 1, right? Which of the following real life examples might you need the skill of evaluation? Number 1, in need of car repairs, you have to choose between 2 local mechanics. Before going on a job interview at a local company, you have to decide on whether to wear a business casual or formal attire. After paying for a service such as an improvement to your home, you have to determine whether the cost justified the price that was asked. D, seeing the little money you have in your pocket on a regular basis, you have to determine why your paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it used to. These are four very different kinds of thinking. Which one is evaluation? Which one is trying to figure out? Again, look at this chart. Which one is assessing, arguing, trying to choose, or trying to discriminate or judge something? I'm using your chat. Denise, the sound is still not working. I'm not sure if it's the microphone's not plugged in well enough, or if you're not using a microphone, maybe something's wrong with the computer audio. So what do we think? Anybody? Feel free to use the chat. All right. Besides Denise's microphone not working, some people seem reluctant to try it out.
So, no, I was trying. I forgot to unclick my thing.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
I mean, you want us to figure out which one is evaluating. They're kind of all evaluating something if you look at all of them.
Essentially, but which one are you deliberately making a judgment about?
A judgment?
Mm-hmm. You're trying to figure out if something meets a certain criteria or a certain standard.
I would say C.
What'd you say, D?
C.
C. And C is very likely correct. I won't tell you the right or wrong answer. So why do we say that? Let's kind of break that down a little bit, okay? So an evaluation does 3 things. First, it establishes a baseline to decide, right? So we call this criteria. So in other words, what makes something worth spending your money on? Makes you happy. It fulfills a certain need in your life. What are some reasons that something makes something worth spending money? You have to establish that first, and then we say, okay, well, I did this fixing to my home. I have to judge whether that fixing of the home met the standard I was looking for, whether the cost justified the price. And then, of course, I would have to back up the evidence, right? So they had a special deal going on. Everybody looks at the thing and thinks my house looks great now. Everybody thinks, wow, what an important, my house is all of a sudden worth a lot more money. Yeah, go ahead, Denise. Try kicking it on.
Nope.
Nope. Still the sound. It's like incomprehensible. It sounds like Mickey Mouse on crack. It's like we can't hear it at all. So Kathy made an important point. Are not all evaluating? Well, here, yes, I'm evaluating two mechanics, but I'm having to pick one or the other, right? So I'm looking at two. Maybe I don't even only have two in my small town, so I might have to just kind of decide one or the other.
That's
So
more of a comparison then.
absolutely, yeah. Next one, B. Before going on a job interview at a local company, you have to decide whether to wear a business or casual formal attire, or business casual or formal attire. Yeah, you're kind of evaluating your clothing, but you're also trying to determine the effects of it afterwards, right? So what effect is wearing business casual going to have versus formal attire, wearing like a suit or a pantsuit or a dress or something like that, versus maybe like button-down shirt and slacks of some kind, right? So you're trying to think about what the effects this might have on the job interview, on the person who's hiring me, whatever it might be. And then D is not so much evaluation as it is the important other area, which is going to be causal analysis. You're trying to ask the idea of why something is happening, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and so I thought it was evaluating the cost of the repairs. So it is evaluating whether the cost of the repairs was justified, right? Was it worth the price that you're trying to ask? Let's put this into a really easy way that I like to kind of assess things. I like to think about things. So I used this in my class last semester, and I'll share it with you guys right now. Let me go ahead and open it, causal analysis, and we're going to look at, not causal analysis, sorry, evaluation. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time because you guys may not even write an evaluation paper, although I'm going to push you guys toward causal and evaluative topics as we get into week 2. So here we go. Last year, Captain Marvel had come out when I was teaching this class, and we were talking about whether Captain Marvel was a good movie or not, right? Everybody had seen it in class. It was like this big, phenomenon. I mean, it made a ton of money, of course, for Disney. So, basically, it would be this kind of the question, right? Is Captain Marvel a good movie, right? That's an evaluation sort of question. So what is Captain Marvel, first of all? Captain Marvel was a movie, right? So then how do I break this down? So what makes, first part, a movie good, right? What makes a movie good? So maybe it's got to have action in it. Maybe it has to have romance. Maybe it has to have famous actors or actresses. Whatever your criteria is for determining what a good movie is. Then we look at Captain Marvel and we say, does this meet the criteria for being a good movie? I like to illustrate it this way. If you just got a job and you're trying really hard, you just started this job and you're doing really good, you're in your probationary period, right? You got 3 months, whatever, to prove yourself. And your boss comes in and says, all right, it's time for your probation evaluation. We're going to see how you're doing. Dance for me. And you start thinking, wait, I'm a nurse, or I'm waiting tables, or I'm teaching, or I'm not a dancer. What does this have to do with anything? And that's the very point. When you're evaluating something, we have to establish what's the basis, what's the criteria for evaluating it in the first place. And so if you're evaluating a hospital policy, well, what should the hospital policy accomplish? Or what makes a good hospital policy? There's different ways you can think about this. Does this policy in question have that as a goal or have that as a conclusion? Does it actually happen as a result? So let's go to the second question here, right? This is kind of important. In general, the first task to complete when evaluating a subject is to decide whether it's good or bad, set up criteria, contemplate why someone would have a different viewpoint, find sources that support your opinion. What do you guys think? So we've kind of outlined this a little bit. I've already sort of mentioned this, but the very first thing, even before you make a judgment about a movie or a policy or a drug or whatever it might be that you're dealing with,
Set up the criteria.
very good. Yes, you got to set up the criteria. Otherwise, you're just shooting from the hip, right? We have to establish what's the basis. So your probationary period's coming up. You're going to be judged on three things. You're going to be judged on your punctuality, your quality of service, and your patient outcomes. Okay, so you're on time all the time. You know, your health, your patients are obviously doing well, but you know, somebody's got a complaint against you. Well, let's see. So are you meeting all the criteria? No, but are you still able to pass a probationary period? Well, how do we do that? Different employers do it different ways, right? But they're still setting up that criteria first. Let's look at the third question. Now, I don't deal with any particular topics related to you guys because I want you guys to start thinking about your own topics. I don't want to feed you topics for this class. It's really, really important for me not to do that. So let's look at these. Which would be the appropriate subject for an evaluation essay? And by the way, these are all great topics. Which one is an evaluation topic? Whether displaying pinup calendars with attractive models is or is not a type of sexual harassment. The best way to create bicycle lanes in areas where pedestrians and automobiles compete for space. Whether 18 or 21 is the most appropriate drinking age in the United States. The current system of determining which team is champion of Division I college football by a system of bowls.
D.
And Denise said the same thing. Rebecca, Gogo, what do you guys say? You guys are along for the ride tonight.
How about now?
Oh, hey, I can hear you. Yay.
Success. I tried all the ports in this thing.
Did you find one that worked?
I did.
Okay, put a little sticker next to that and say, use this one.
Oh, I'm not moving it now. It's right there. I unplugged the printer and just moved cables around, finally.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. I use a USB thing, actually. I mean, I have a microphone on my computer, but it picks up all the sound around, whereas this one is much more clear. So, and since I do so much online teaching, I use this. Okay, so both of you guys said D. Rebecca and Gogo didn't answer. I'm going to expect you guys to answer one of these questions. D, the system of determining whether, you know, whether the Division I college football, you know, system of bowls. That's very complicated. It's very like sportsy sort of subject. But the topic is this a good system, right? Is this a good way of determining the college football champion? This whole system of bowls. And you will, if you Google this, you will find people are like vitriolic about this topic, right? This is like, you know, people will kill each other for this topic because it's so important to those who like college football. But basically, they're trying to determine if it's good or bad.
Right.
What are the other topics? Determining whether pinup models are sexual harassment. So I work at a job, I got my office, I got pinup models with like Miss November. You know, I'm not bugging anybody, but is it sexual harassment in that case? What kind of topic is that? Draw back
like
on
a debate.
I'll clue you in. Draw back on Comp 1, your Comp 1 topics.
It's
more of a narrative, like more of a description. Like it's just kind of like.
Okay, so is it narrative? Am I telling a story? Is it exemplification? Is it definition? Is it compare and contrast? Is it problem solution? What do you guys think?
It's not compare and
It's
contrast.
not compare and contrast. I mean,
No.
you're not comparing anything, but you are definitely evaluating whether this particular item is.
Yeah. Okay. So you're loosely using the word evaluation. And
Yes.
You're using it more in a colloquial sense, and that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah. The idea, what criteria would we establish? In this case, we would think about this as definition, right? Is having these kinds of pictures in your office a form of sexual harassment or not?
Okay.
And again, some people would say, yes, it meets that definition, right?
Yeah.
Or it does not meet that definition. Think about politically, right? So here is a political candidate running for office, right? You know, I am the only true Republican. I'm the only true Democrat. Well, what does it mean to be the only true Republican or Democrat? Does this person meet that definition? Number 2, the best way to create bicycle lanes in an area where pedestrians and automobiles compete for space. What would that be?
Wouldn't that be compare and contrast? Bicycles, automobiles?
Maybe.
Two lanes, maybe?
So you're not comparing and contrasting bicycle lanes to pedestrians. You have this problem that you have this only one space where there's cars and bikes.
Bicycles.
And so you need to do what? You have this problem. You need
Problem with the solution.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Exactly. Whether 18 or 21 is the more appropriate drinking age.
All right. Here you're comparing and contrasting now.
That's right. You'd be looking at what reasons for 18, what reasons for 19, for 21, so on and so forth, right? Which of course is kind of like a crazy question in most of the world. Most of the world doesn't have a drinking age, and if they do, it's like, same as legal adult. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's look to a famous speech by President Bush.
Oh, I had a hard time with this.
Yeah.
So, returning to the moon is an important step for our space program. Establishing an extended presence on the moon could vastly reduce the cost of further space exploration, making it possible ever more ambitious missions. Lifting heavy spacecraft and fuel out of the Earth's gravity is expensive. Spacecraft assembled and provisioned on the moon could escape its far lower gravity using far less energy, and thus far less cost. Also, the moon is home to abundant resources. Its soil contains raw materials that might be harvested and processed into rocket fuel or breathable air. The moon is a logical step toward further progress and achievement. What is he evaluating exactly? Oh, my computer is going to die. Let me get this plugged in before it dies on you guys. What is he evaluating?
Whether or not putting a base on the moon is economically feasible.
Okay, good. And it's not just economically feasible, right? He doesn't just mention economic feasibility.
True.
But the resources available.
Ah, very good. So there's all these other aspects. So cost is one, but also the facility of whether getting these rockets up into space is so hard and so difficult and dangerous, in fact. And then, like what Denise mentioned, also the resources too. So how would we say this? A, B, C, or D?
Oh, it's B.
No, A. No, wait, my A. I'm reading from mine. Sorry, that would be, wait a minute.
The cost and access to resources available on the moon.
B.
B.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's not just about the heavy spacecraft, right? He doesn't even mention other nations. And then this idea of the proximity of the moon to the Earth, well, there's nothing to evaluate there. It's a fact, right? Like you can't argue. You can't argue whether the moon, it's science. It's basic astronomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so he's trying to argue, evaluate the cost and access. And based on the criteria he's establishing, is he saying is it good or bad to go to the moon? Establish a base on the moon.
What was your question? Sorry.
Well, based on what President Bush is saying here, is it good or bad to go to the moon?
It's good.
That's right. He's evaluating, he's judging, he's assessing it as a good thing based on the criteria: cost, resources, ease, right? Far less energy, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Let's look at that one more time. So what criteria is he? What criteria is using? He's using cost and access here. What is being evaluated?
Building a base on the moon.
That's right, exactly. So it's not about America's presence so much. It's not about humans' role beyond Earth, although that's mentioned. It's not about world conflict as it pertains to space travel. It is about building a base. Is this a good idea or not? And so let's just kind of sum up a little bit point, right? So if you are at your job and somebody says, here is what our division is going to do. Here is what our floor is going to do. Here's what our nursing faculty is going to do, or nursing staff is going to do. You need to, and let's see if it's a good idea. You're basically evaluating whether that's a good policy. Well, how do we know if it's a good policy? So what are the effects going to be? And are these good? Is this effect good? Is that effect good? Is this effect good? Is this benefit worth the effort? Is it worth the trouble? So on and so forth. And so you have to establish all these baselines, establish the criteria, make a judgment, and then show evidence to support it. You guys very well may write this kind of paper in this class. Let's quickly also look at Quiz 2. I know people had trouble with both quizzes. I think people did a little bit better with Quiz 2. And that may be because if you look at this, right, Quiz 1 evaluation is really the hardest kind of writing. Whereas,
are you going to put this up in Moodle, Professor?
this particular image?
Yes.
If you want to, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a good tool.
It's a good tool, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to think about it this way. Anybody who knows anything about teaching will know this particular concept in teaching, because basically the idea is if we're making a test, our test should not just live here, right? Our test should live in all of it.
Okay.
But the problem is, and people don't like this, you can't really do evaluation with multiple choice. I mean, how do you do it but you just can't, right? You can't. You can really only test these with multiple choice, and that's why professors use them, because it's easier for them. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, but really, really a good teacher is going to activate all of these. They're going to move up the chain as they're asking questions. But I'll share this with you guys, absolutely. So let's look at quiz number 2, and let's see how you guys did with this. So this is on causal analysis. Causal analysis kind of lives in this 5th and 4th realm. Basically, the goal is to try to figure out why something is happening. Now, there's many reasons you might do that. There's many reasons why somebody might want to figure out why something is happening. So, for instance, one of those could be to assign blame, right? Who broke this? You know, and you're trying to figure out who or why this got broken. Or perhaps we want to avoid a problem from happening. It could also be a good thing, like we want to repeat a success. Hey, this good thing happened. Why did it happen? Because we want it to happen again. Baseball players, for instance, hit 2 home runs in a game and they never change their underwear the whole season, right?
Ooh.
Because they think all of a sudden I've hit 2 home runs because I had this pair of underwear on.
Let's just hope they wash them.
Yeah, well, hopefully, it's a long season, but baseball players in particular are very famously superstitious, and oftentimes it's because they don't want to have a problem, they don't want to avoid a problem, or because they want to repeat successes. They feel like it's a certain thing. Causal analysis is not superstition, though, right? Causal analysis is going to try to discover why something happened, why something is happening, or why something might happen. If we implement this policy, patients will die. Why? Why is that going to happen? What on earth is the chain of events is going to lead from this policy to patient death? And we absolutely have to figure that out. We have to connect those dots.
Jax, go.
I think that's Kathy, right?
Sorry, I'll turn my microphone on.
No problem. Kick it on whenever you need to talk, okay?
So when we write the causal essay, we need to take into consideration those 3 points?
No, you pick one or the other depending on what your goal is.
Okay.
And that's often going to be determined by your research question.
Okay.
But again, I wouldn't stress too much because you may not even write a causal paper. Everything's going to depend on what kind of paper you talk about. And we're going to finish our class with that this evening. But let's go over these quiz questions. So in which of the following real-life settings might you need the skills of causal analysis? So seeing the money you have in your pocket on a regular basis, you have to determine why your paycheck doesn't stretch so far. And you got the exact same 4 as always, right? Or the same from before. You got to look at 2 mechanics. You got a job interview, and you got to decide about the effects of the clothing you're wearing. Or after eating at a local restaurant, you want to express your thoughts about the restaurant on a website like Facebook, Yelp, or TripAdvisor. Which one is actually asking you to do causal analysis?
B.
Are we sure?
Well, you're asking for car repairs. You have to.
I think it's A.
Right?
Kathy says A. Gogo says A. What do you say, Rebecca? A. Ah, yes. And A is the most likely right answer. Why? Well, here's a problem. I have this problem that exists. I have no money, right? My paychecks aren't paying all my bills. Yeah, sure, I could write a problem solution paper. Maybe the solution is getting a second job. Maybe a different solution might be like asking my employer for a raise. But I'm not exploring the solution. I'm trying to figure out why this problem's happening. Am I spending too much money eating out? Do I have too expensive of a home for me to live in? Do I need to cut down somewhere? Am I supporting some loser child who still lives at home and doesn't actually pay? Which of course is unfortunately the case for so many of my students at different institutions because they I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to talk about it too much. But all these kinds of problems that people face, right? So they don't want solutions so much, but they're trying to figure out why those solutions are actually happening. I'm sorry. Why those problems are actually happening. By the way, let's just look at D for a second. What kind of question is D? I was using all kinds of like, you know, highfalutin examples for evaluation, but this is a very basic.
Well, it's a comparison. I mean, you're comparing what you see on Facebook, Yelp, and TripAdvisor on a particular restaurant. So you're choosing. So
I'm not comparing what I saw. Like, I didn't like look at Facebook.
oh, after wait,
No, you want to express
yeah,
thoughts.
you were
That's
trying
right.
to-
I'm expressing my opinion. I'm making a judgment. I am
Exemplifying?
evaluating.
Oh, evaluating.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Close, I
My
respected it.
point is, we evaluate all the time. We evaluate restaurants, we evaluate movies, we evaluate TV shows. Very rarely do we evaluate in written form, though. And so that's why, you know, it's not a foreign concept to you guys. You know, you figure out why your car is making a funny noise. You figure out whether you liked a restaurant or not. Well, how did you decide whether you liked the restaurant? Right? You set up criteria. Like, what are restaurants that you like? Did this restaurant meet those criteria? So, not to change subjects, but that's evaluation as well. And again, A is your answer. A is your causal analysis answer, right? Let's look at number 2. Ah, shoot, they're all on separate pages. I gotta fix that. Sorry about that. In general, the first task to complete when analyzing a cause is to carefully consider all the effects, make a claim as to the reason something makes something else happen, decide why knowing the cause of something is important to everyone, determining whether the net gain of this cause is positive or negative. What do you think?
I can see.
We got 1C, we got 1B. What do you say, Rebecca? What do you say, Kathy?
D.
Oh no, we're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, carefully considering all the effects. I mean, you're picking all the criteria that has to be analyzed.
But you're not exploring the effects. You're analyzing a cause. So causal analysis does this. My car is making a funny noise. What's going to happen if I don't fix it? My wheel's going to pop off. My car's going to light on fire. I'm not going to have trips to work. I'm going to have to ride the bus. I'm going to have to ask somebody for a ride. Those are all possible effects. I'm not concerned about those at the moment. I'm concerned about why my car is making the funny noise. So I don't go these ways. I go this way. I go to what's causing it.
Then it's C. I go with C. Whoever else said C.
So the answer to this one
It's always Y.
it's going to be
Oh no!
it's going to be this.
B.
Oh wait, okay. My letter. I'm looking at my. I printed out my quiz, so my letters are different.
Oh, you're not looking at the same screen as I'm sharing.
No, my C is the same as that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, yeah, and that's the case. Yes, this is important, but this is more of a conclusion. Why should somebody care about the cause, right? But the first task is going to be making a hypothesis. This is very, very, very basic scientific thought. And why is this important for you guys specifically? Think about this for a moment. You got a patient in front of you. He or she is sick, right? They're bloated. Maybe they have like some sort of pus coming out of a wound of some sort. What do you have to do as a nurse?
Evaluate.
Oh, sure, trying to determine how serious the person is. Absolutely, very good.
Mhm.
But what about else? I mean, this person is clearly not getting better. You're going to ask the question,
Why?
yeah,
Why?
why? That's right. It's a very fundamental thing, and that's why I specifically teach evaluation and causal analysis in this class, because these are fundamental skills that you have to have, not just thinking, but also being able to put them into written form. So why is this person sick? Not the effects, right? The pus is an effect. What's causing the pus? Is it internal hemorrhaging, perhaps? Is it something else that's causing some sort of problem? Why is this person bloated? Do they have, low blood pressure? And you're trying to discern why. You're essentially coming up with a hypothesis.
Yeah, we can use our nursing diagnosis for this, Denise.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
our nursing diagnoses have 3 steps to them. Basically, you have the cause, which would be, I don't know, for instance, inadequate nutrition,
Okay.
Mhm.
related to, and then related to, what you see
Excellent.
as
Excellent.
evidenced by
Why?
all these symptoms.
But that's not what I was thinking, and I wasn't familiar with that term. But what you're suggesting is something called the root cause analysis.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
But you're on the right track. I didn't know that term because I'm not a nursing major, but but that's what you're suggesting, because here's the initial cause, here's what you
Yes.
see, you're trying to get behind the layers, right? You're trying to
Correct.
peel the layers of the onion to see what the
That's
meat
right.
is.
And then you have to do the outcome, you know?
That's a very important kind. There's actually two kinds of causal analysis. Root is one of them. Another one is called main cause analysis, where you may have three things contributing to the problem, but you're trying to figure out which is the greatest, or which is the main, which is having the most effect. In other words, if you can only deal with one thing right now, which one of these three things are you going to deal with?
Okay.
Main cause is good. Root cause is better. Why do you think I say that?
Root cause is better?
Yeah, main cause is fine in college writing. Root cause is even better, though.
Well, root cause really gets down to the nitty gritty of everything. I mean, it just you're going to take the end result and just rip it to shreds and give all the reasons why.
That's right. That's right. So, I have very poor health. Okay, why? Well, main three causes. I live in a home full of lead paint. I eat a very poor diet. I never get exercise. Yeah, those are all contributing factors. Sure, right? Those are all sure contributing
But
factors.
what's the real reason?
Yeah, and so root cause is not going to look at one of those three. It's going to say, let's
Underlying cause.
go deeper. Yeah, so is this person somehow unaware of nutritional standards? Can he or she not afford to eat well? Or
Does she have something impairing her?
very good, lack of insurance or something like that. These are things that are behind the scenes, and
Mhm.
root cause is gonna peel back the layers of the onion to get to that. As I said, it goes down the rabbit hole to figure out what's actually going on.
Okay.
Let's try question 3. Which of the following would be an appropriate subject for a causal analysis essay? Again, determining whether sexual harassment, emailing sexual jokes is a type of sexual harassment. Explain the lessons you learned from a change you decided to make as a teenager. The effects of recidivism on the American criminal justice system. Higher levels of emotional and behavioral problems in children from one-parent families. By the way, if you're not familiar with this term, recidivism means the likelihood of a person who's in jail to return to jail.
Yeah, had to
Yeah.
look that one up.
I looked it up too.
But you wouldn't have to look it up if you looked at what word here. You look at effects, and you'd know
And then criminal justice, but
and that's not going to be right? Because it's looking at effects of recidivism. Whatever the heck recidivism is, it's effects, and you know it's not causal analysis.
Right.
So, is it A, B, or D? What do you guys think?
Higher levels of emotional and behavioral problems. Oh, it's either A or D.
yeah.
Well, this is very much similar to that initial one about the guy with
Yeah, it's too simple. I'm going to go with D.
Yeah, this is determining if A is B, right?
Right.
That's the definition. Is emailing sexual jokes at work a form of sexual harassment? Yeah, it's A equals B. This is going to be like narrative, right? Like you guys mentioned earlier. And so this, higher levels of emotional and behavioral problems. In other words, somebody is going to look at a group of children and they're going to say, hey, these children who come from single parent families have higher emotional and behavioral issues. The immediate question that a thinking person or a scientist would ask would be what?
Why?
Why? That's right. Why? Why is this happening? Why are these kids different from kids who come from two-parent families? And unfortunately, this is actually true. This is not a fake statistic, right? This is unfortunately true, not of course for every person, of course, but statistically it's higher, right? Kids who come from single-parent families have higher emotional and behavioral issues. People aren't sure why exactly. Some sort of brain chemistry. There's all kinds of ideas out there, and that's why causal analysis would be applied to this, right?
I think it's a way that they reflect their emotions, or they don't know how to handle it.
Naturally. Yeah, is the mother working extra work to try to pay for the bills? Is the father abusive? We don't all these are possibilities, and that may be a way of really important way of defining it is that we don't know. There's too many variables, too many factors, right? Okay, so one more straightforward example, or like straight out of like a real life example, I should say. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, more than 120,000 acres of wetland are destroyed annually. The leveling of these wetlands will go entire delicate ecosystems and the plants, insects, and animals they support. So what cause is being analyzed?
The loss of the including the living beings. Let's see. I think it's A.
I think it's A. Okay.
Mhm.
Only Denise answers. Gogo says A too. All right, so we will give you guys. Rebecca jumps in too. That is it. Yeah, the answer is A. I actually don't.
I
think
was saying
Rebecca,
A, but my microphone was off.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I don't think Rebecca has a voice. I don't think I've ever actually heard her speak. I only see her write messages here. So yes, the answer is A. In fact, yeah, because they're trying to determine why this is happening, right? Yeah, this is starting to be developed. It's certainly not the reason for the destruction of wetlands across the U.S. That's kind of the distractor, but we're covering this broader question here, right? Entire ecosystems. So it covers more than just one particular thing itself, right? It's not just the ecosystem, it's also the animals that belong to it. The long-term effects, that should be clue you in, that's not the right answer at all. The role of humans, that would be kind of evaluating, right? Evaluate the role of humans in destroying wetlands. Well, wetlands, here's what's happening. What role does humans have in each of those? Are they more responsible, less responsible?
But the paragraph doesn't mention human intervention.
That's a great point as well, right? Yeah. So first of all, this wouldn't even be. It's not even a value. It's not even causal analysis, but it doesn't even mention humans either.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. Question 4. Let's try the last one. So, same question. The statement's a fact, not an argument. What causal analysis argument could be made, however, using this fact as evidence? The loss of wetlands and associated life form is a serious loss for all humanity. Is that a causal argument, though? Animals are part of the ecosystem being lost due to the wetland destruction. 120,000 acres is approximately 125 square miles.
See.
Climate change is most responsible for the loss of the wetlands.
C.
Well, which one's making a causal analysis?
C is kind of a statement or a fact, so it kind of doesn't apply.
That's right. This is just a factual statement. Just a factual statement.
Oh, the statement is a fact. I'm sorry. I read it wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's saying this statement is a fact right here. Yeah. But what causal argument?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So I got all this wetland being destroyed. I'm going to make an argument as to why I think this is happening. I think this is happening because
D.
Yeah. D. Climate change. I could make an argument for climate change, whether or not, whatever your feelings are on that subject, but I could make that argument. Climate change is the cause for all this wetland being destroyed. Greedy industrial, home manufacturing is the cause for this being destroyed. Whatever it might be, right? Pollution is the cause for this being destroyed. So we might be able to argue different causes, and then we try to support the evidence. This is not so much this is more of an opinion based on it, and it is sort of an argument, but it's not a causal argument. This is actually happening, so it's a fact. It's not an argument. Same thing. This is a thing actually happening, not an actual fact. I don't even think this is accurate, to be honest. All right. So I'm going to open up that quiz this evening after we finish and give you guys 2 more attempts. I'm sorry, 1 more attempt on both. Let's switch gears now and talk about week 2. So starting on Wednesday, this won't be due until next week, but let's start talking a little bit about what's going on in week 2, because I want to prepare you guys for what's coming up, not just what you already done so far. Let's start thinking a little bit about what a research question is. This class is guided not by 4 papers, but by 1 paper. And in that paper, you create the question and you pursue what you're interested in. I like to think about this as a paper that offers you the opportunity to become a specialist in something. So maybe you guys are all basically going into nursing, let's say, or medical fields. Let's say you want to be a specialist in infectious disease. So pick a topic related to infectious disease. Maybe you really want to work in a neonatal unit. Pick a topic related to neonatal units. Or you want to be a trauma nurse, or you want to be work in the trauma hospital. Pick a topic related to those. And I'm not going to just give you guys topics. That's really important. It's really, really important. I can't express how adamant I will not just give you a topic because I want you guys to pick, right? it's really important for you to begin doing the research and informing yourself on something that you're interested in, and that will help you create a topic that ultimately is a strong research-based area of inquiry. So let me go ahead and share just a little bit with you guys here. I'm going to share a little PowerPoint, and I'll post this PowerPoint up for you guys later. But let's start looking at a couple things. So first of all, you know, our goals are to create a research question. It's also to create strategies for developing research questions, right? I can, you know, lead you to fish, but I want to teach you, or I was to give you a fish, but I want to teach you how to do the actual fishing, as the expression goes, right? How do you start to come up with topics for inquiry? Let's say you're in management, you get into management, and you need to decide of strategic goals and things that you're going to implement in with your team. Well, how do you even begin that? You need to begin with the research process. And we're also going to talk about how to formulate research questions. So why, first of all, do I have you guys creating a research question? First of all, it demonstrates your curiosity, your inquisitiveness. Research is how we find answers for something. And I can't possibly come up with a topic that 8, 9, 10, I think there's like 12 people in the class would be totally happy with. It's just impossible, right? So I want you guys to pick questions that are going to guide your own search for answers and best practices in your own field. So what am I looking for in this week? I'm going to be looking for a research question forum. You're going to be doing two things. You're going to be posting a research question. You're also going to be reading 3 essays and looking for the research question in those. It doesn't mean that it's directly stated in the essay. It's simply what question guides the research here. So for instance, the first one, these are, I think, all from NPR, this is a New Republic article. These are topics that have been popular in medicine recently, since some of you guys are going into healthcare. First of all, training good doctors starts with the liberal arts. Take a look at the article next week. What question is the article actually pursuing? What's it trying to answer? Same thing for how misinfodemics spread disease, right? Meaning people having misunderstandings of things. And this certainly sounds familiar to some of you guys who wrote on vaccines last topic, right? Misinfodemics. So people have the wrong information, and it's an epidemic of wrong information. It's totally a made-up word, but it describes the situation quite well. And the third piece that you have the option of reading, that you have the option of reading that you are going to read is the third. Wait, do I actually ask you guys to do all 3? I think I asked you guys to do all 3. Oh no, you're actually picking one of the 3 articles. That's right, you're picking one of the 3. The third article has to do with the higher than average female mortality rate postpartum, right, among African Americans. So statistically, if you look at white women, Hispanic women, Asian women, African American women in this country, African American women die at much higher percentages after giving birth, which of course leaves lots of children without their mothers. And that's a problem no matter what race somebody is. But why in particular is that an issue among African American women? What's happening? And so that's a very much a sort of research question. So these are all posing these questions that are really vital, right? These are leading those researchers, leading those journalists, leading those scientists into areas that they can write on. And your topic as well will be a question that you'll share. So how can you come up with a question? Obviously, you got to begin the process. So my suggestion, and these are different strategies, different tools you can do, start with exploratory research. So for instance, if you're interested in vaccines, or you're interested in trauma care, or you're interested in, Lifestar helicopter nursing, right? Just start with a little research. You can start very broadly. You can go onto the online academic libraries, or you can go to professional sites like the American Nursing Association or others. You can also just Google something to start off with. That's perfectly fine for this exploratory research. Personal question 2 is going to be list your interests. So what would be some dream jobs of yours? What would you love to go into specifically? And then begin the process there. So what do you not know about a job? What do you know about the job that's a problem? Well, what challenge do certain people face in that field? Or what makes it so hard for people to get jobs in that field? So that's strategy 2. Strategy 1 is just some exploratory reading. Just start reading on a topic that you're interested in. Number 2 is asking these kinds of personal questions. What do you know about a job? What are you interested in? Question 3, and this is kind of the one that I really like to do myself personally, not necessarily for you guys, is to start organizing your ideas according to these topics. So, for instance, let's say I'm interested in pizza, right? I love food as an example. I'm always eating. Just before class, I had my dinner. I also had my dessert. So what are some things I can do? Well, I can describe what a perfect pizza is. I can give you examples of great pizza shops in Pittsburgh. I can tell you a definition. A good pizza, what does it mean to Americans? I can compare and contrast Papa John's and Little Caesars. I can talk about a problem of like, Americans eating too many pizzas that are too high in sodium, too high in fat. What can they do about that? I can think about the process. What's the best way to make pizza dough? Not two Italian grandmothers aren't going to agree on that topic, right? I can evaluate. Does this local pizza place make good pizza? Well, what's good pizza? Good pizza is going to have this and this and this. This place does not meet those certain criteria. Classification or division. Is a bagel pizza actually pizza or not? Or what my mom used to always make with old bread around the house. She used to make French bread pizza. It was basically French bread that nobody ate. She dumped tomato sauce and put some American cheese in it. Is that actually pizza or not?
She gets an A for creativeness.
Yeah, that's most certainly the case in my mom's cuisine. Cause and effect, right? Causal analysis. Why is pizza so popular in this country? Why do people go to that all the time for food? Effects. What are the effects of Americans' consummation of pizza? What are the effects physically? What are the effects on local businesses? What are the effects on local people? I'm using a stupid example, but I'm able to come up with all these possible topics that could actually be a topic if this class were not full of medicine majors. But you get the idea. Start with some general ways of organizing your thinking, right? Neonatal unit. What's a perfect neonatal unit going to look like, right? And I won't give too many examples. I don't want to shade anybody's direction. I want you guys to sit and be able to pick your own thoughts.
So we get to choose any one of these rhetorical modes. Is that what you're saying? We don't have to, or
yeah.
Okay.
Although you'll find that in the discussion, I will push you guys toward evaluation and causal, because those are going to produce usually stronger papers necessary to meet the large requirement of this paper.
Okay. Evaluation.
Yeah. That said, you might do quite a few things. So you might have a problem solution, and then you have a solution, and then you have to evaluate that solution. Your whole main goal of the paper is to evaluate the solution, but you're showing how this is a solution to this problem. So think about it this way. Comp 1 teaches you what a hammer is, teaches you what a screwdriver is, teaches you what a nail gun is. Comp 2 tells you to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
You can't build a house with just a hammer, right?
Right.
You can't
And
build a house with just a screwdriver.
It has to be medical field related? No.
No, it doesn't have to be, but given that you guys are all going into those areas, I would certainly encourage you to think about tying this to your future careers. But it doesn't have to be by any means.
Okay.
So I'm going to post this PowerPoint up for you guys. Let me give you guys a couple examples for us to think about. So approach the topic with curiosity. I find out that excessive weight gain for women in pregnancy can be harmful for both mother and fetus. That's a scientific fact. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Scientific fact. Excessive weight gain is dangerous for the mother and for the fetus. So why do over 40% of women put on excessive weight while others do not? Well, first of all, what is excessive weight? And how do we define that? So that's already definition going on there, right? But then why do 40% put on excessive weight where 60% don't? Medically, not just husband, right? What's going on? So I start thinking maybe it has to do with hormones, and I begin creating a hypothesis. Let's change topics in case you don't want to write about medicine. American immigration policy targets an increase in skilled immigrants as a response to addressing skill shortages. This has been really discussed recently when the topic of immigration comes up, right? And thereby increasing the country's economic growth. So I know a lot about the experience of immigrants. I know this country prioritizes people with high skills, engineering, computer science, and so forth. But I'm interested in what actually happens to those immigrants when they come. Somebody moves from another country. How is that person's experience different than what that person expected? There's a bit of description going on, a bit of narrative in that you're telling somebody else's story, perhaps. Maybe you're comparing and contrasting expectation with reality. So you're drawing upon multiple rhetorical skills here. Like I said, you're building a house, right? Let's do one together, okay? The United States has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the developed world. You may not be aware of that. Unfortunately, too few people are. What questions can be developed? I come across this fact. Look, here are the 32 most developed countries in the world, and ranked by infant mortality. And here's the U.S. Right? We are number 32.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're way down on the list, right? Way down. I mean, like, got some really random places that beat us, like Latvia, right? So why? Why is the U.S. so far down on the infant mortality list? Why do we have so many babies die out of 1,000 live births?
Maybe because we have a better health system?
Would we have a better health system in that case if we have more children dying than other countries?
I'm sorry?
So do we have a good health system if more children die in this country than, say, other countries?
We don't. Our health
no.
system sucks.
Well, you said that we're at the bottom. That I can't read because it's so small.
Oh, sorry, but the bottom is bad in this case.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because like Iceland has 2.1 out of 1,000. US is 3 times as many. And by the way, Mexico is 7 times as many.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. Well, there you can blame, the water, the nutrition, and all that stuff. Disease.
Very good. So you're asking questions already. What role does nutrition play on infant mortality?
Mm-hmm.
What role does water quality play on infant mortality? Those are cause and effect sort of papers,
Mm-hmm.
right? What other possible questions can we pose regarding this? How about a solution? How about a solving question?
Oh, a solving problem. And these are babies at birth?
Yeah, these are births, basically set upon birth, yeah.
Right. Well, maybe better hygiene in the hospital.
Very good. So again, you might be thinking, a solution. This is a problem. Here's a solution to it. Hygiene, better hygiene in the hospital. Yeah. In fact, I had a friend of mine. You guys will like this. I had a friend of mine whose life, basically his career has been made. He's a computer software designer. He designed software that would watch doctors going into operating rooms and go out and see who washed their hands going in and out.
Oh, wow.
And so his computer software found that about 1 out of 3 doctors would wash their hands before surgery. 1 out of 3.
Wow.
Right. And so his software basically was flagging doctors who weren't washing their hands prior to surgery.
Wow.
So interesting, right? So these are kinds of things I want you guys to do. Find a topic you're interested in and begin teasing the questions out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might pose certain questions, like you might begin thinking logically. You might begin thinking about overly broad topics. What forces affect race relations in America? Oh, good grief. We might as well ask, how many foods do people like? Well, what about a more narrow way to ask that? How about how do corporate hiring practices affect race relations in Tennessee? Much more narrow, right? We're not talking about all kinds of factors. We're not talking about all across the country. We're talking about one place, one factor. What's the connection? By the way, this would of course be cause and effect, right? Effects. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Basically, your work for week 2, starting Wednesday, is to post your research question in the research forum. Post a research question. It should be a single question. Post a hypothesis. What do you think is the answer to that question? This will basically become your thesis.
Okay, so this is where we start officially the writing of our paper. Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Finally, post question 3, post your rationale.
Okay.
Why are you choosing this question? What are you basing your answer on? So on and so forth, right? So you have question 1, your answer to the question, and then a paragraph after. Your discussion board should really only be 10 sentences at the most, right? 10 sentences or so at the most. You want to reply to 2 people, and you're going to note that I'm going to pay particular attention trying to guide your research question to becoming more narrow, more significant, and so on and so forth. Once you finish your research question, or if you want to flip-flop them, whatever you want to do, pick one of these articles and analyze that article for a research question. What question, and you may not find it in the essay, question is guiding that whole article. There's additional resources here, a couple of good videos on research questions, and there's some great PDFs. I can't claim that I made these. This one is from Vanderbilt University. This is a fantastic little tool for thinking about questions that are too broad, too neutral, right? Too objective, too open-ended, right? So we want to think more narrowly, and this will help you kind of do that. So use these kinds of additional resources to help you as you're guiding topics. And of course, if you're like totally lost, you don't know where to start, feel free to research or contact me. Or if you want to run a question by me before you post it, that's perfectly fine too. I'll be more than happy to help you in any way I can.
I have one question. The week 2 readings, we choose one of those articles, and what do we need to post for that? Nothing?
Yeah. So you pick one of these 3 articles, and that's what you use. Writing exercise 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
So you're analyzing a reading, you're going to pick 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, gotcha.
Otherwise, I'm done. Feel free to stay if you have any questions. I know we covered a lot.
Request.
Is that Kathy or Denise? I didn't hear.
It's me, Denise. I'm sorry. I have just one request. Is there any chance the ProQuest link is in, I believe it's embedded in week 1 or something like that? Can you put that like on the main page so it's easier to access?
Yeah, how about under getting help? We can put under getting help. Is that
okay. That works perfect, because if not, I have to, it takes me a while to re-find it again.
No, that's perfectly fine. We'll do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'll do that right now for you.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, Kathy, go. Rebecca, if you have any questions. And
Hello.
those of you watching the recorded session.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Okay, so I'm going to be missing some Mondays because we have psych on Mondays, but it's not every Monday. It's like every other Monday.
Okay.
So pretty much, yeah. I just want to let you know.
No, not a problem. So as it turns out, this semester I had to move it to Mondays because I'm teaching a class that's Tuesday and Thursday nights, and then in order to kind of accommodate that, we're attending church on Wednesday night. So Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, I'm away from the house. So the only way I could do it was do it on Monday or Friday, and several people, Denise not included, said I think Denise, you were in favor of Fridays, but most people were like, no.
No to Fridays.
Yeah,
that's okay. If I have any question, I will reach out. But I just want to let you know.
Okay, not a problem. Not a problem. And they'll be recorded for you, Go, so you can always watch the recorded session 1, 2, 3 times, whatever you need help with.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to sign off. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.